Hey everybody, this is day 36 with Mo, a 4-year-old gelding from Black Rock Range, Nevada, and this is his very first trim. He's being a very good boy. We like to do our trims ourselves until we can guarantee that they're not going to hurt our farrier. And Mo's had a lot of work done with his feet, but this is his first day getting his toes trimmed up. And he was a very good boy. And I did speed this footage up just a little bit. And after Mo got his feet done, it is time to do some round pen work. So today I'm going to work on saddling him. This will be, I think, his second time being saddled. We're going to do a little work with long lining, and then we're going to do some work dragging some stuff. So to start him off, I usually free lunge them a little bit just to give them a chance to get their legs moving. And Mo is naturally a little bit on the lazier side, so I try to keep good body language, open shoulders, hand pointed where I want him to go, lots of energy in my body language, and then I'll keep the lunge whip with me, and I'll typically hit it on the ground if he needs a little bit extra encouragement. Now that we've warmed up a little bit and he's a little more connected to me, I'm going to start working on getting him saddled. The biggest thing with the saddle pad is to repeat the motion a bunch of times, because a lot of times the saddle pad coming at them a little bit quick will scare them. So I'm trying to get him used to that. And the biggest thing is that he just realizes that the saddle pad can move fast and it can make some noise, but it's never going to actually hurt him. And you see, the right eyeball tends to be a little bit more the worried eyeball in a lot of Mustangs. So I'll take my time, I'll let him sniff it, and I'll just go a little bit slower. Like I might lightly rub his neck with it and then give him the chance to think about it. And then I'll go back in trying to get it around his barrel where the saddle will go. And when he's more comfortable with the saddle pad again, I'll open it up and I'll put it on him like you would for a regular horse tacking up. And then I'll repeat a similar process for the saddle. I like to let them sniff it. Sometimes sniffing it, they'll scare themselves, but I like to let them look at what's going to go on their back. And he's really good about that. He didn't mind it flipping over. And you can see from his head position and his ears that he's a little bit worried. But then he drops his head, and puts his ears forward and is not super bothered by it. And because he didn't really react to the saddle going on, I'll go ahead and girth it up. And granted, if this was the first time that I had tried to saddle him, I would take the saddle on and off several times. But he seems to take things in steps, so I'll just move on to girthing the saddle up. And I'm not sure that I filmed it in a video, but I did do a lot of work prior to this with ropes around his barrel to get him used to the feeling of being cinched up. Because I find that it makes saddling go a lot better. I really don't want the first time they feel pressure on their barrel to be when I'm putting the saddle on, so I like to use ropes to get them used to that feeling. And I won't cinch it up super tight here, just tight enough to keep the saddle on should he decide that he's going to be worried. And he's a good boy. And that's an example of what you should not do right after girthing up a fresh Mustang, is walk in front of them, because if they were to jump forward, you will be run over. So now I'll pop the stirrups down and I'll try to get him used to seeing things move off of the saddle and get used to that sound. And the sound is usually what gets them. But he's being pretty good. He moved a little bit, but he's staying pretty calm. And I did that on both sides before I sent him out for a little bit of a lunge. And you can see I'm just smacking my leg to give him some sound to get him to go forward. And again, he is naturally a lazier horse, but he has quite a balanced horse canter for a horse his size in our size round pen. Watching these back is fun because I can see my little oopsies. Like where he stopped there, that was his choice and not mine, so I should have sent him on a little bit more instead of changing direction. But we're going to change direction and ask him to go forward this way. And he has the loveliest trot. But you can see here, he's being pretty sticky, so I'm going to ask him to canter. And that's where you see him hopping, which they can do especially it's when they're so sticky in the trot. And I'm just encouraging to move forward, and I don't get fussed about the bucking. It's a pretty normal response to them feeling something strapped around their rib cage and moving forward. So I just teach them that when they feel uncomfortable, the answer is to move forward and not to buck. But again, it's not really something to get fussed about the first couple saddlings, because they're still getting used to the feeling. And you can see he figured it out pretty quick. He didn't even offer to buck the next time that he cantered. And we'll change direction and we'll go the other way. And after he goes both ways, I'm going to pull out the milk jugs. And the first step to getting them used to the milk jugs is having them follow while they drag on the ground. The milk jugs are super light. They just make a lot of sound. And after I had started work with the milk jugs, I had forgotten that I wanted to long line him. So I just grabbed another rope and put it on him. And we're going to start long lining. And again, he is naturally on the lazier side. But what I love is that he is not super fussed about long lining, isn't reactive to the rope around his hind legs. And there we did a halt, and now we're gonna work on a turn. And this can frighten them, seeing you behind them. But Mo actually handled that really, really well. And now I'll get him to go forward this way. And I thought I would show him turning around the other way. And it took him a second, but he figured that out very, very quickly. He was good about long lining, so now I'm going to do a little bit more work with the milk jugs. So I've attached a rope to the milk jug, and then I've run that rope through the stirrup leather so that the milk jug can drag behind him a little bit. And I'm just going to get him used to it, following him from a little bit of a distance, and then I'll pull it up closer to him. So he was good with it dragging, so I cut out a bit of footage. So I've slowly pulled it up closer to him, and he seems not too worried with it up there at the walk, so I'm going to get him to trot. And up here is where it'll start bouncing when he's moving, and he's being pretty good about it. And there you can see that it hit his belly and it worried him. So I'm just going to let it sort it out a little bit. And there. So it's still worrying him, but I'm just going to let him figure it out because it's very light. It's not hurting him. And he's starting to get the idea. And now I'll just repeat the process on the other side, dragging it a little bit further behind him and then moving it up closer where it'll start hitting him as it bounces. So he can get used to things flapping a little bit on him and seeing things, behind him to prepare him for when I try to get up there. I do cut out quite a bit of repetitive stuff. So I did lunge him with it dragging for a fair amount of time before I brought it up close to him. And you can see he remembers from the other side, and he's not quite as worried about it up there on this side as he was on the other side, which is great. We love to see him learning and remembering. So I like to do the milk jugs like that at first because I think it sets them up for success. Before I directly tie them to the saddle, because I like having it through the stirrup iron, because if they moaned it didn't get super duper worried, but if they were to start panicking, I can drop the rope that the milk jug is on and it can just fall out from the stirrup iron. Meanwhile, while it's tied to the saddle, there's not really anything I can do if they start to panic about it. So before I tie them to the stirrups where I can't get them off, I like to do it the other way just to prepare them a little bit. So now that he's had that prep work, he should be okay with me having the milk jugs tied to him on both sides, just to get him used to something flapping like my leg would do if I was up there, and seeing stuff moving like around the saddle area. And as you can see, the prep work paid off because he isn't panicking about the milk jugs being on him. I even get a nice relaxed canter with the milk jugs going this way.
Well, this is much more relaxed.
And now that I've done all that prep work with things around him, I'm gonna do a little bit more prep work for starting to mount. So that'll include me moving the stirrup leather, me putting my knee in the stirrup leather, and just getting him used to start having some weight up there. And when I'm starting this work, you'll see that I have the reins kind of short on this side, and that's so if he was to get worried, I can pull his nose around so that I don't end up accidentally getting kicked.
Sorry.
No, these are my stirrups.
Oh, really?
I would never ride in something this long. I just don't want to put my leg up. I'm being lazy.
Stretch,
I'm, like,
Megan.
About to like actually
The face he just made.
And that was some pretty good progress for Mo for this session. That's pretty much all I'll do, and we're getting pretty close to having our first sit and our first ride.